give a warm welcome to the hosts of Alternate Ending.
How are you, Debbie?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Robin Carey from Alternate Ending.
Hi. Nice to meet you, Robin Carey.
Yes, nice to meet you virtually. Yeah, sorry we can't be doing this in person in beautiful Park City. You'll have to get like a rain check or something on that whole experience.
I'm just grateful I'm not going to get the flu or worse.
Same boat. I'm in the same boat. Like part of us was like last year when we went and, there's the energy and doing all that. And part of me just wants to hunker down at home and never leave again. So
I know
this is working for me that we get to do it this way this year. So
well, congratulations on your film, Try Harder. We had the chance to catch it just earlier today and I absolutely loved it. If you don't mind, if you could just tell us a little bit about, for our audience who may not have seen it yet, just a little bit about the.
I hope they haven't seen it yet.
Yes, right.
About the film, Try Harder follows 5 students at San Francisco's iconic public high school, Lowell High School, as they try to get into an elite school of their dreams. And it's a heart-pounding but fun adolescent experience, kind of coming of age story.
It absolutely is. I got to say, this one really resonated with me specifically because I really identify with that whole cohort, that whole group of individuals. That was my high school experience to a degree. I certainly didn't go to a prestigious school like Lowell. I went to a public school, and Lowell's a public school as well too. I went to the International Baccalaureate program. It was a small cohort within a public school system, and super high overachieving kids, not myself included. I just knew how to work the system to like get around, and I'm sure you can't tell from my face, but I'm 20 years removed from high school. So, so my pursuit of the college admission was a lot different. It was a lot easier. Things have changed in the last 15, 20 years. Is that right?
It's totally nuts. You do not look. You look like you could have graduated.
Well, that's very sweet. That doesn't color my views on the film. It's still amazing. It was always amazing before that.
High school has changed. I mean, I was really surprised by what it's become in the last, 10 to 15 years. I feel like students approach high school like it's a job almost. They're professional students and they're getting robbed of their childhood. They don't get to. I mean, you're supposed to worry about how you look and,
Right. You're like, who's going to ask me to the dance? Like, that's like the biggest thing when you're in high school, the biggest pressure and getting to games and things like that. So did you feel in particular close to Lowell, or why this high school, why Lowell that you chose to follow?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm not from San Francisco and I didn't go to Lowell. I grew up in the heartland. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. And I was fascinated by a high school experience that was completely polar opposite to mine, and being Asian American, I've always made Asian American stories. So this place where being Asian American is the norm, was really interesting to me. That was not how I experienced high school.
Well, it's so funny because Carrie and I were betting whether or not you went to Lowell, and the only reason I thought yes was because I felt like the story could only have been told from someone with the care for and love and affinity for the school that was represented in the documentary as well too. So kudos for creating that experience as a viewer.
Oh, thank you.
And I thought maybe not, because I'm in your boat where I had a completely different experience. And Rob and I actually watched it separately too, because I knew he was going to have like certain affinity towards it for just it feeling like, so familiar to him. And for me, it was so different. Like, to be really honest, like my mom used to put my bees on the fridge, like my bees would get put up there, and I didn't feel like that was the number one goal. For my family, it was the number one goal was enjoying myself and enjoying the experience and building relationships and growing sort of strength of character through making mistakes and then learning from them along the way and all of that. And so when I went to college, I applied to one school and thankfully I got in, and it wasn't like a great school, but it was Augustana College. It was in the Quad Cities and I had a good experience there too, but
yeah. And that's a great way to go through high school. I mean, I'm curious then, did you relate to the story at all, or did you think, oh my goodness?
No, I related from a different perspective now. Like I related to it in sort of a stress way, because seeing it through their eyes, like it is an empathy trip regardless of who you are and your experience, because you look at these kids and you just feel their anxiety, and you know how much they're worried. And what I loved that you did is you pulled in such different perspectives. Like the anxiety that these kids are feeling that you brought in are coming from such different places. And I empathize maybe even more with some of the kids than others, but kind of what was your approach to that in pulling together, such different lives that are kind of leading them down similar paths, but different?
Yeah, that's such an interesting response. It's really this ecosystem that they're in, within, both within Lowell High School, but also just the whole entire college admissions frenzy that's, our country has become, yeah.
No, it's a manufacturing process now. So 20 years ago, the acceptance rates were not nearly as bottomed out as they are now. I managed to go to what I like to call the Ivy League of the Midwest, which is Northwestern. I had ambitions at Stanford, but at the time, Northwestern did early action. I can't remember which. There's like differences, but I don't remember which one I did. But once I got in, I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't need this stress anymore. But it was a 20% acceptance rate at the time, and it's been halved since then. In Stanford, the documentary shows that it's like 4%. I mean, the pressure that these kids put on themselves, and I think more so, what's interesting too is the parent dynamic that's captured in here too. Is I think Tiger Mom is referenced in here as well too. I didn't have a Tiger Mom. I had a pierogi mom, or like kielbasa mom. Like I have foreign born parents, but my mom, I really identified with Alvin's. With Alvin in this situation. Your characters are so amazing. How did you narrow it down to the 5? Did you have that idea going in, or was it more like you shot and then like this let all the footage kind of tell the story?
We definitely shot more than we could put in the film. We shot over 300 hours of footage. Yeah, and we, I love all these stories that you're sharing. You don't have to be Asian to be a Tiger Mom.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like when I was growing up, the Tiger Moms were all Jewish. Those are like in my
St. Louis. Yep.
Personal, in St. Louis. But we met Alvin like on the first day of shooting, and we knew we wanted to make a film with Alvin in it. But we had so many. I mean, you could have dropped a pin on. There's so many kids, amazing students, and we filmed more than we could and had to cut some out in the editing room, and it was very difficult. And we also had to sort of stand by our guns, because like 5 characters is a lot of characters to have in a film, and 3 of them were Asian American, and some along the way, we had advice that said, cut them out. But I just didn't think that would be true it wouldn't do justice to the school where, being Asian American, most kids are Asian American. And it's just not something that's shown on film very much.
And you bring up a really interesting, not but it's this almost race. I don't know if we can call it racism or something that happens where it because schools are really trying to meet certain criteria, is that oftentimes talented minorities are left out, despite being very worthy of being included in those types of things. So it's just like a really interesting perspective. Is that something that you wanted to focus in on as well?
Yeah, I mean, the sort of racial repercussions of the college admissions process are pretty stark. I mean, we're all kind of forced to all the kids were forced to be put in boxes, whether they're Asian or Black or white. Or anything else, I mean, everything was looked at through that lens. And I think it's so hard to start your, path towards independence as a young adult with all of that in your brain. And I just wonder what are the repercussions of that for, our society.
I interestingly enough, I that was one of the biggest takeaways I think I had from it was, even beyond what you said, Rob, for me it was just sort of the identification of that they feel like that somehow becomes, it's defining to them versus like it doesn't really matter, and it becomes a defining point for them. And so for a couple of the characters where they felt like, you know, self-conscious about, I mean, they're these really talented individuals, and for them to feel like, well, that's why I got here, was one of the things that I think was probably more heartbreaking for me, rather than being incredibly talented and incredibly, you know, engaged. And, you know, I don't know. I agree with you, I guess, on the front of just hoping that there's some sort of way to deviate away from that kids don't have to process.
And you're absolutely right. Nobody comes out unscathed by the process, even the ones who are the winners. And it's like you second guess why you won. And that seems, I don't know, there just seems like there should be a better way to do it.
I thought it very interesting that it at least seemingly one of the big differences between my experience and the one shown in the school is that the top folks in my school, which I was not that, they were not as socially adjusted, and as a result may not, like through the lens of whatever you want to, you know, career success or whatever, may not be as successful. But all of these kiddos seemed super well adjusted and just well rounded
and inclusive of each other. I mean, I don't know, from the view that I'm seeing, I'm like, they all seem supportive of each other. Like, although I know it's competitive, there's just sort of a warmth to the dynamic there.
I was surprised by the amount of community. And I know that, like, you know, in every school, there's people who feel included and don't feel included. And high school is brutal. I mean, it's like, I was a total outcast when I was in school. So, you know, I totally get that. But I was also really surprised by how there was this camaraderie in the competition. And, you know, again, not to say that a lot of kids don't take it too personally and get hurt by that dynamic, but there still was this sense of, you know, here's a story that you'll like. We didn't get to include this in the film, but at every single school dance, there was a kid who came to the dance with his date, who was a cardboard anime cutout.
Of course.
And he would bring her every dance, and everyone would be like, and then there's Quan. And, you know, it's a place where Quan would not get beat up. I mean, he was like totally included, you know, in, if you know, Shay said that if you studied physics, you wouldn't get thrown up against a locker. That's sort of what he thinks about Lowell.
Well, that's the other difference. It's cool to be a nerd now, which is fantastic. But the dance sequence, the enzyme bit was very,
that was
being the catalyst.
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
Yeah, with the fanny pack. But there's so many great moments like that.
And interesting. So you bring up Shay. So Shay's story for me was another one that I think was so compelling, and I can't tell you the emotional rise and fall that I felt following his story and the way that you captured it to really demonstrate. I mean, you do have kids like Alvin whose lives are being completely managed for them. And then you have kids who are so self-confident in what they can accomplish that they sort of think life's going to take them on their own. And then you have somebody like Shay in his story where he deserves all the same things, and yet it's so much harder. And I think that, you know, his story for me, the way, I won't go into the details for those who haven't seen it, but his sort of, the totality of his story was one that I think is so memorable. So I'm glad you were able to capture that.
Yeah, she's, I mean, again, it was another, it's like all the kids, but when we met Shay, we really wanted to include him instantly. And
that's one of the things, again, about being virtual is I'm sure you would have, in an in-person environment, maybe brought some of the kids who could come in person. Have you had a chance to screen it with the larger group and their families? And what was the reception like?
Yeah, that has been really fun. I mean, they have loved it. You know, I mean, I'm still waiting for them to tell me something they don't like. So I'm not, you know, but yeah, I think they basically said it was kind of intense to relive high school again. You know, it's been a moment, and it was a really intense last year of high school.
I've often wondered what a parent seeing themselves the way that they actually are, if that would change. Because I'm if you have any ideas for my mom, who's probably not, maybe she'll watch this, but like I'm looking for ideas still. Now she's closing in on 70, but she is who she is. But the whole Alvin with the Chinese New Year situation with the interview, that is my mom to a T. That's part's so great. But I didn't know if any of the parents were like, hey, don't show me like that, or they're like, nope, that's the way that's the way I should be. Yeah, I don't see a problem with the way I'm acting.
After they have birthed you, don't expect them to change for you. I mean, come on.
Right.
I tell him that all the time. I'm like, it's how many years has it been? Just accept. Oh, did you have any of the parents or the stories that felt most familiar to you? I know you said this isn't your story, but are there any sort of relationships that sort of most closely follow your experience?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think I identify most with Rachel, the character in the film, who's biracial, black and white. Her mom, she lived with her mom as a single mom, and I mean, my mom, and also Rachel's mom, shows you that you don't have to be Asian to be a tiger mother. And she is amazing, mom. Rachel's amazing. I'm not saying that's not how I saw myself when I was a kid. It's more that, and my mom wasn't a tiger mom either. My mom, like in our generation, I don't know. I didn't have an immigrant parent. I think immigrant parents tend to be really intense because you have to. And my mom was like the laissez-faire school of parenting.
Same. Figure it out on your own. Make your own path. Yeah.
It could have been like Jay. Like,
well, what was interesting, it seemed the most self-aware parents were the ones who went through the experience themselves. Because I can't remember which parent it was, but it was the parent of graduated in 85. So they wanted the opposite in a well-rounded experience for the no pressure. So I think there's something about having lived through it that, I mean, it's certainly impacted. Carrie and I are married and have two girls. It certainly impacted the way that I'm parenting, or that we're parenting our kids as well too.
Oh, that's so funny. I wish I'd known that going into this. Could ask you a question.
Exactly. It changes the dynamics a little bit here.
Well, I know we're focusing on Try Harder, but I'm already looking forward to Try Harder 2 getting into Sundance, because basically you've gotten into the Stanford of film festivals, if I must say so. So congratulations on that. Is any projects that you're working on currently? I know it's difficult with COVID going on.
This film actually came out of a film called My Tiger Mom. So I was focusing on the moms themselves and making a personal essay documentary about that. I'm not sure. It's been such a journey doing this documentary. And I'm also working on some screenplays. So, COVID is very difficult to get anything done in. And, when you can sit and write and feel really good about it, So that's kind of what's keeping me busy.
Well, enjoy. But, enjoy reveling in this experience. It's, Sundance is something to be enjoyed and reveled in. So, again, I'm really looking forward for everyone to, I think everyone can get something out of this. Either you've had this experience like I did, haven't like Carrie, or know someone in your class who was like that. So there's going to be something for everybody in Try Harder. And really looking forward to the warm reception it's going to get when it's released.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Perfect.
Debbie.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks so much for catching up.